And there have been ongoing issues with boss, etc. Well, we have to talk about that. But the minority, they decided to take a trip led by the minority leader to somewhere in Dalong. And we know that there had been banning of some tipper tracks of some sun winners located there, and the leader of the minority in parliament and one of my guests all were among the delegation to that place. I have Alasan Suhini, Member of Parliament for Tamale North here. Good morning to you, Alasan.
Good morning,
Andre Japamesa is a legal practitioner, but also Member of Parliament for Second D. Thanks for joining me, Andrew.
It's always a pleasure to be here.
Right, and Alasan, that Dalong and the whole position of the minority is what now?
We think the exercise carried out by the military
in which they did what?
On the authority of the Defense Ministry, in which they bent about 14 trucks and an excavator, was wicked. It was extrajudicial, and we are calling for an investigation and possibly compensation for the affected, truck operators. And investigation is very necessary, especially after listening to the defense minister yesterday. We think that he has been misinformed, and he is peddling a lot of falsehood about this matter. I am suspected, I'm tempted to think that maybe he is using similar situations that have happened in other jurisdictions to explain what happened in Dalong. For example, he, on the floor of the House yesterday, peddled a blatant falsehood that some champagne machines, is that what they are called? Champagne machines were bent in the area, and that there are about 6 or so. That is a blatant falsehood. I mean, if you go to that area, you will not find any such machine. What you will find are the tracks that were bent and the excavator. So as to how he got the information that those machines are also in that area and mining on the water body, baffles me. Then again, he says that the military men bent these equipments because they could not find the operators. First of all, if you wanted to find the owners of the machine, each of them had number plates. You could trace it to the DVLA and find the owners. Aside of that, the people who were there and took us around during our visit, some of them showed us marks on their body, indicating how the soldiers beat some of them.
They were brutalized.
And took their money. Yes, and took their money. So if you say you can't find people, how come they were beaten? And if you sit in Accra without sending a team there, you will be given the kind of wrong information that they are given. And then the third and most significant point is the confusion around where this operation took place. Now, in some time past, these sand winners used to mine the sea sand at an area called Nauni. Now, Nauni, we are told, is close to the water body, very close to the water body. Now, together with the Dalong chief, the regional coordinating council, and the regional administration of Ghana Water, they appealed to these truck operators to relocate from Nauni to Afayili, which is about 2 kilometers away from the Nauni area. And the drivers did not resist that appeal and therefore relocated to Afayili, where they were accosted and their equipments destroyed.
And as you can see, just in the split screen, this is a dramatized sketch of how they were punished when our reporters went there. They experienced this and they told us how they were punished. But, well, we know there's an ongoing issue. Before we go to Parliament and pick the section of parliamentarians that have been talking on the subject, let me just pick your thoughts on this, Mr. Meza.
Well, good morning to your good self and my very good friend Alasan here, and to all our cherished viewers this morning, particularly those in my constituency, secondly. It's unfortunate that things will have to get to this level. purely arising out of people's penchant for disobeying law. So you are torn between as to whether the law enforcement agencies, who according to the defense minister have been tasked to protect our water bodies, and who upon getting to this particular location on at least the third or fourth occasion, on every occasion that they went there, per the report that he said he had, these people bolted and left the vehicles and equipment there. And so the military took a decision to burn these equipments down. And also the aspect of the people who, as we all are being told, are merely making a living out of destroying our water bodies. So we really have to make a choice as a people, because you can see clearly from your screen, I do not know the particular area in question, and I haven't been there. Of course, Alasan, because he comes from that part and probably within some radius of his constituency, has gone there. There's a water body right there. Yesterday, the impression was created that these guys were only
doing normal sun winning.
But sand is a mineral which requires a license to mine. So were they conducting an illegal activity, or they were engaged in legal, legitimate business? In any event, there is a general ban on mining in this country. Does it include sand winning, or it does not? You see, you allege in one breath that the defense minister probably is misinformed, and he reported on the information that had been provided him by the military, and he indicated clearly that he requested for thorough investigation to be conducted and a full report provided him. Yet, in another breath, you say he's peddling falsehoods. So how do we reconcile somebody who is acting and providing Parliament with information that has been provided him, which you
by a source
concede absolutely may be misinformation, and say that this same person is peddling falsehood to the people of Ghana? He indicated what had happened and said that, look, two things that we can do. People ought to abide by the law, or if the law enforcement agencies, who per our own constitution and other legislation in this country, are entitled to use some level of force to enforce the law, there's a conflict between the two. We have to decide which side we'll be on. Because clearly,
so you're saying,
I drive by the River Pra.
You're saying we can't eat our cake and have it?
Absolutely. I drive by the River Pra. Every time that I'm going to Sekendi and coming back, it's not a pleasant sight.
The water is reddish.
Absolutely. Yeah. Water is life.
I want your full interpret.
So for a few people's economic interest, all of us should suffer. That can't happen.
Okay. Point made. Now let's go to Parliament. When we go to Parliament, we're going to watch an insert of the Member of Parliament for Bekwai, who also happens to be Deputy Speaker of Parliament. But let's watch Honorable Joe Wise.
I have made some very extreme suggestions. I know people are not happy with that, but regrettably, I don't have the authority. If I had, I would have made the law that if you find people on the water bodies, shoot them. That is what I would have done if I had the authority. That is how recalcitrant those people are. Look, in this country, if you go to some countries, and there are some countries where littering on the street as recently as in the 60s, if you littered, you were shot in the streets. If you dumped rubbish and they caught you, they shot you. That was the law.
I think there are better ways.
Lin Kuan Yew students, I believe.
You know, Roland, I don't think we are listening to each other.
No, we are.
No.
Well, we want to put the conversation right.
Yes, but people,
we want to situate the conversation.
In the case of Dalong,
yes,
people keep talking about the destruction of a water body. And the point we keep making is that these drivers, and then they talk about breaking of laws. We are saying that these drivers were law-abiding people who did not resist an appeal to relocate far away from the water body.
So you're talking about the abuse.
So we are saying that we all agree.
So
we all agree that our water bodies must be protected.
But
and we are saying that in the case of Dalong,
so what you disagree on?
In the case of Dalong, for example, the people were not close to a water body because they had been asked to relocate.
You showed the clip now.
Please. That's why we are calling. I mean, if you saw people, you know, he just said that it is staged. Do you even know if that's a place that it was staged? I mean, that's what I'm saying. We are not listening to each other.
But there's a bent truck right at the background.
We are not listening to each other.
I haven't been there.
Now,
the water right there.
The regional minister, there's a reason why the regional minister
Can't
says...
we all see water?
No, sir. There's a reason why the regional minister says he's unaware of the operation of the military. There's a reason why the district chief executive says he's unaware. Because the two of them, and yesterday the Minister of Defense on the floor of Parliament confirmed that the regional minister and the DCE are not aware.
And they
because the two of them negotiated the resettlement. The two of them negotiated the resettlement. And the district chief executive and his assembly actually take tolls from these people. They negotiated the resettlement. So if at least the Ministry of Defense had contacted the regional minister, maybe they would have told them that the people are no longer where they were.
So is it the position of the minority that one, the drivers had their human rights abused?
That is the general picture.
And then the modus operandi by which we want to deal with this menace is not the best way?
There are three issues. The first two you have pointed out, correct, that's our position. And that applies to the general operation of the Operation Vanguard. The destruction of property in the manner that it is done. In, you know, the...
How do we synchronize your earlier position about how we need to rid the environment of all this and
there are laws.
This in the bad?
There are laws.
Right.
There are laws as to how to go about it. So we are saying that do that within the law.
There was a position taken by the minority that, well, we've not had the Operation Vanguard being effective, and even the military coming out to say they go clear the places and just a day or two they are
what
back.
I'm saying is that
and also the cases are also not dealt with speedily at the court.
We have laws.
We should work within the laws.
If the laws are defective, let's work with them. Let's revise those laws. But as we speak, there are laws that prescribe how to deal with these things. And that applies generally. The fact that they abuse their human rights and the fact that they operated, you know, in an extrajudicial manner. Generally, because the minister boasted that in the Eastern region they burned 6 excavators. Generally. But in the case of Dalong, we are saying that they don't even seem to understand, government officials don't even seem to understand the peculiarity of the situation there. Because these people were not close to the water body. They were not.
Well, thank you. Please wrap up on this. I just give you 2 minutes and then we'll move on to the subject of
we are in a very serious situation with this Galamsey.
It's a countrywide problem.
Absolutely. And I think that it requires strong measures to deal with it. We know people are generally akin to disobeying simple rules. And so, I mean, like I said earlier, we have a choice, really, as a people. Of course, the courts exist because we all recognize that in some instances your rights may be infringed upon. And so if people's rights have been infringed upon, there's a remedy. So let them go to court and indicate quite clearly that, look, I'm not saying that what the military did is right or wrong. I'm not prepared to pass value judgment on that situation because I was not there. I do not know the circumstances that compelled them to take this measure. But the minister tells us that, look, it wasn't the first time that they had gone there. On each occasion that they went there, these people left the equipment and left.
Russia, couldn't they have traced the ownership of the equipment?
Well,
couldn't they have done that?
So let them.
Couldn't they have seized the equipment, traced ownership, and get them?
But I think we are where we are.
It's a lazy way of dealing with a problem.
With this problem,
it's a very lazy way
forcefully
of dealing with a problem.
The last 36 hours saw a pressure group called the Chamber of Petroleum Consumers, COPEC. It's led by one Duncan Amwa, who's now been sued, though, 5 million Ghana cedis in damages by Alfred Obing Boating, who is the managing director for BOST. But his whole point, or the point of the pressure group, was that, well, BOST was not dealing well in the sale or in how it deals with the products in its tanks per how much it's sold, whether it's sold at regular prices or commensurate prices per what the market says, etc. We've had some reaction also coming on this, and I know you're very much aware of the issue. Let me have your initial take on the subject.
Well, I think that BOST has adequately responded to the issues that were raised in the concerns, if you like, or the allegations that were put out by Duncan Amwa and his COPEC. Because my understanding is that these products, 942,000 barrels or so, thereabout, came in February. The intention was for TOR to refine these products for BOST, for them to, as it were, dispose of it in their normal course of dealing. Now, they buy these products on credit, 3-month credit window, to refine and then offload. At the time that the product came in, Temari Refinery was not producing. We're not refining. So the product had to be kept in tanks beyond the 3-month period. Indeed, all the way up to August of 2017. The suppliers of the product were making calls on them to pay, because I had a 3-month credit window, February to May, to pay the product. They did not have the money. They couldn't refine the product. So they gave TOR notice. In fact, they were dealing with TOR regularly and kept promising that we were fixing their stuff. It was going to be done soon. We're going to refine it next month, all the way until August. So in September, they took a decision to sell the product so they can pay their suppliers and cut their losses. And that's exactly what happened. But I guess that we won't ask and be furnished with the information regarding some transactions that pertain in some state organizations, because of course we all have our interest, political, if you like, civil society, whatever you may choose to call it.
You're saying that OPEC is politically affiliated?
I said, that's why I said civil society, political, because my friends in the NDC have put a political spin to it. So
OPEC is
and all of them.
So the NDC shouldn't discuss any national matter. The NDC shouldn't discuss any national matter.
So I'm saying that every person who is speaking to the issue based on where they sit will throw out, yeah, of course. Now, you see, one allegation that has been put out there, which seem to be confusing people a little bit, is that, and they've drawn parallels with the Movimpina transaction that they sold to a licensed company. Now, what happened, and you can Google BB Energy, it's a huge international company. They sold the crude to them to take out of Ghana. Now, NPA licenses operators who deal in this jurisdiction only and no more. So they did not require a license issued by NPA to buy crude.
Out of our shores.
Absolutely. Now, ultimately, the crude ended up with Bost refining it because there's an oil jetty, and I understand there's some laycan, which is the space that you need to enable you export out. At the time that Bost sold the crude to them and gave notice to Tor that, look, we've passed title in this product to BB Energy. BB Energy could not find the laycan to enable them take the crude out. So, subsequently, I guess Tor's operations had commenced. Bost, bear in mind, needed to sell the crude at the time that they did to pay the suppliers because they do not produce crude. They buy it on credit. So they had satisfied their suppliers, cut their losses. And BB Energy then went into some arrangement with Tor. And as we speak, those products have not even been, the refining of that product hasn't been concluded. So is it the expectation of COPEC and the minority that Tor should have kept?
Doesn't have a position.
Oh, haven't you heard Mutawaki?
No, I've heard.
He speaks for himself as a ranking member. When the minority wants to take a position, we hold a press conference.
Why do you want to rope in the minority?
When the minority wants a position assigned to them, they hold a press conference.
That's all right.
What is this?
Finish. You see, let's not.
You're so fixated about the minority.
Let's not pretend as ostriches and bury our heads in the sand.
We will state a position that I know, but we haven't done that yet.
What has been happening in this country in the past few days?
So you're saying
you've ever heard the commentary?
Are you saying COPEC is in league with the minority?
I haven't said.
Then what are you saying?
I haven't. No, I've drawn a clear distinction that depending on where your interest is, yeah, it's fine. They think, yeah, they are social.
Perhaps maybe you're saying that civil society will try to leak the issue. Create a certain big issue out of it, and the minority will take it up.
Not at
that's
all.
not what you're saying.
Look,
is that what you're saying, or
no,
that's not
what I'm saying?
Okay.
I'm saying COPEC put out a certain information. Tor has come to put clarity to it, have stated a position, and I'm going ahead because people are playing political chaskele with it to draw clear distinctions between where it is that if you have an interest in a particular direction, where you take the angle from and spin it. So, as far as I'm concerned, the issue about unlicensed company that has bought crude and all that
discounted
does not arise.
Okay. Point made.
Well, Roland, I'm surprised that he ends on that note. What we are told by the law, and in fact it's been corroborated by the CEO of the bulk distributing company, Senor Hosi, that the position of the law is that any company that wants to deal in petroleum products in this country needs to be licensed and come under the controls and supervision of NPA.
Even if it's not a permanent player, just coming into...
Once it is within the shorelines of Ghana, if you deal in petroleum products within the shorelines of Ghana, and it is not the case that you are bringing in what companies that are not required to be licensed under NPA, can do, is that they can bring in crude. You can bring in crude, and the crude will be received by a licensed company at the shores of Ghana. But once that transaction is within Ghana, that company, according to the law, corroborated by the BDC,
the bulk oil distribution
boss
chamber,
is that NPA must regulate it. And he's a lawyer. So I'm surprised that he's playing politics with this.
They're two different things.
The license. You need to have a license.
The
to
license
operate.
goes to a certain regulatory regime.
Exactly. But how will you be regulated without a license?
Even if you're coming to undertake a short-termish transaction.
Okay, that's interesting. So what you are saying is that let's not even go to bizarre,
okay, so let's move on.
But there's nothing bizarre about
no, let's not get to those levels.
That's actually the case.
What is the case?
Because you see,
what is the case?
No, that's okay.
The case is what I have stated. That any petroleum product, any company that deals in petroleum products in this country should come under the supervision of NPA. And the only way they can do that is to get some sort of licenses. Now, moving away from there, I'm surprised that my brother is playing politics with this whole matter.
Why? Why is that?
And, rather screaming politics and suggesting other people doing so. Why are we not worried that this MD at Boss seems to be too scandal prone?
Why?
I mean,
how many scandals has he?
We have still not adequately addressed the issue of 36 million liters of contaminated fuel. As we speak.
But there's been an investigation, as we have
so-called investigation.
The oversight. But that's the point.
No,
that would be your position.
And I'll tell you,
because we've had the Ministry of Energy come out.
Roland, you see, sometimes the media, we should help this country.
But we're helping.
I noticed that sometimes when some parties are in government, you do a lot of these things.
Which one? You mean media or all of us?
No, most media.
Most media.
Roland,
that's not a fair comment.
I'm talking about most media, not you as a person.
No, I know. You and I have a very good relationship.
Yes, Roland.
But I'm talking representing media.
Roland, you see, but the point has to be made.
That's not a fair comment.
No, it's very fair. You see, the point has to be made that when a government is in power, I tend to see that some sections of the media tend to suspect, in fact, majority tend to suspect a lot of things that come from government. So even when government comes to say that we have done investigation and this is it, you still will find the media go behind the investigation and ask questions. So I tend to get surprised that these days, when you talk, the media tells you an investigation has been done and so let's move on.
You mean we're silent?
It is not fair to this country.
That's not fair to us.
It is not fair to this country.
Let's move on.
So you see, there has been an investigation.
Even though it's not fair.
But we all know the kind of investigation that took place. And I know that in the past, you would have gone behind these investigations to reveal more. Because how do you have a minister who announces an investigation and indicates that an investigation team will be set up, and only a day later comes up with a report that has been combined?
Let's move on.
So I'm saying that matter hasn't been adequately dealt with. And then we have this one.
Oh.
And then we have this one.
Let's be fair to the MD.
How? I mean, it even raises the question of the competent management of Boss. I am
headed by him.
This is how Boss was run down in the past. How does a company not anticipate, problems ahead and purchase crude with hard-earned currency, only to be told that that crude cannot be refined, and they leave it in their tanks for months for it to get distressed, and then they sell it at a reduced cost.
In the industry, it will not be an issue.
Do you know what? Let me tell you what.
That's why there are SOPs by which you deal with some of these things. Let me tell you what is likely.
Otherwise, what likely might have happened.
Had some of those standard
you see, in the purchase of the crude, someone had a cut, so he didn't care whether it will be refined or not. In the reduced sale, someone is getting a cut. I am speculating based, like Martin Amidu.
Based on suspicion.
Based on actionable suspicion. Actionable suspicion.
Like Commander Sugar Factory, I suppose.
What are we talking about?
Yes, because you built a factory without any raw material. So somebody got a cut.
It's okay.
Oh.
That's the logic of what you are saying.
No.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Yours rather doesn't.
Can you imagine the illogicality?
No,
you built a factory, a whole factory without raw material.
That's not fair, please.
Is it because somebody got a cut in the building of the factory?
Okay, you've made your point.
And didn't care where the raw material was going to come from?
That's okay. That's okay.
Is that not a logical analogy from what
you've had one whole year to have an outgrower.
Outgrower where? From where?
Which was part of the agreement, by the way.
Let's go on.
Which was part of the agreement. The outgrower, and we all know about backward integration, which was explained. But I think it is a weird example. Please try harder. But you see, the point I'm making is that someone went to buy crude for Boss without giving a toss as to how that crude will benefit this country. So that crude comes to stay in their tanks for months, and then they justify the sale at a reduced cost because they took a reckless decision. And they say we should clap for them. But remember that it is the taxpayer who has lost. Even if no crime has been committed, even if BB is licensed and did no wrong by buying the crude at a reduced price, even if no wrong has been done, let us be mindful of the fact that the amount of money boss used to buy the crude, part of it has been lost because the product became distressed and had to be sold. Shouldn't we care? Even if no crime was committed, shouldn't we care that we have lost money? Can this qualify as causation of financial loss, deliberate causation of financial loss? Because the state has lost money. So even if BB is licensed, what about the loss to the state? The fact that the crude was not utilized the way it was intended to be utilized. Is that prudent and competent management of an institution? So let us not even, and all you hear is, an attempt to blackmail Duncan Amwines and brush them with some dirty paint. I don't think it served this government well. Like I said, this, and maybe if the president was not in haste to clear the boss case like he did as a clearing agent, maybe we wouldn't have had this happening. If he had dealt with it, with all the force that he could marshal and sent a strong signal that he will not countenance with anybody who misconducts himself as an appointee, the people at Boss would have been afraid to engage in this reckless transaction leading to losses to the state. So even if no crime was committed, even if BB was, a license, which we know they were not, and which the law says that they should have been licensed, what about the loss to the state? The fact that they sold the crude at a reduced price.
You're speculating.
I am not speculating. We are told the product was distressed.
That's speculative.
No, we are told the product was distressed.
Mr. Suhuyini, that's speculative.
No, it's not. They said the product was distressed. And so they reduced it to sell. They reduced it. But they bought it, for example, they might have bought it at, at the time the world market price was going up. They might have bought it at, say, $60 a barrel. But because it was distressed, they had to sell it at, say, maybe $50 a barrel, even though I'm told it's about $2 that they sold it. I don't know if it's a barrel or a liter. But at least they sold it at a reduced price.
Propagandist in chief.
This it's not, you see, don't do this to this country. And that's what we do. That is what we do. You reduce everything to propaganda. You reduce everything to propaganda.
Price has been put out. We all know.
The discounted price means the state has lost something.
Absolutely, I agree.
Absolutely. And is that something you should jubilate over? Is that something for which you should clap for the MD?
I'm not clapping for
Let us
anybody.
be fair.
Please wrap up on that.
I am saying that. I am saying that I partly blame His Excellency the President. If he had taken drastic action in the first case and dealt with it, leaving no questions hanging.
The MD did nothing wrong according to what the Minister
people there wouldn't have attempted this.
Your point has been made.
I get surprised that, and I know he knows that.
Why should he know what you think he should know?
You
I don't even know what he's going to say, so let him say it, and I'll agree or not.
Roland.
Yes, sir.
I import a product, okay, to refine. Now, I don't own a refinery. At the date that I'm purchasing the product, the refinery is functional.
Dysfunctional.
Functional. It's operational. The product comes in, and the refinery
is dysfunctional.
It's dysfunctional. Do you know what is called force majeure?
Force.
This is a clear force majeure situation.
Really? It's now
of course.
force majeure.
Now you say that.
Incompetence.
No, wait.
It's not incompetence.
How does?
Do you remember the gas pipeline and the accident?
That's okay. Mr. Suhuyini, that's okay.
Which led to Doomsor?
That's okay.
How does?
It's not incompetence. It's force majeure.
How does TOR's inability to refine the crude constitute incompetence on the part of the management of BOST? How?
I'll tell you how.
You see, yet you sit here and say that we shouldn't do this to ourselves. This, that.
And the gentleman who had Scopec said he'd been threatened, etc. Now he's been sued.
Well, that
is it for defamation?
Yeah, that's how this government
for damages.
Party is. You
But
don't go after them.
Look,
you know, and,
so if
and
you
sleep
make
well.
an allegation that
They're
I
not
have
as
threatened you,
accommodating as the NDC.
and I know that I haven't issued any such threats on your life, clearly you've tarnished my image, my reputation, because every right-thinking person would perceive you to be a potential killer. And so, Mr. Boatin, Alfred Obin Boatin, feels that the statements that Duncan made relative, you see, and there's a clear distinction if you look at the motion paper that I've seen. He doesn't seek to even commingle the issue of the threat with the specific bust transaction, because that does not affect his person. It's a corporate decision that bust may have to take if they think.
It's almost like putting a barrier on your way for you to pursue a certain course of
an
action.
injunction on him that he shouldn't talk about it.
No, but of course,
again.
if you bring an application or
I mean,
you issue a
there are
writ of
various
that
ways you
nature,
can go around the law to
it's
achieve
necessary that you bring an application for an injunction to stop the
We had
person
a former
from
chairman
making
of the
further comments. So what's
NEC.
your
There are
problem?
various ways of killing a cat.
They know the ways of killing their cats. I do not know. But relative to this particular issue, I'm saying that the allegations that relate to the crude has been adequately responded and satisfactorily so by boss. Absolutely.
You see, I think that
I wanted us to talk about debt.
Yes,
I have only 5 minutes.
I'll do that. But what I just want to put across.
I have
is
only
that-
5 minutes.
Yes, but just permit me, I beg you. You see, when you look at what my brother calls satisfactory explanation, I mean, I get baffled.
Because you are not satisfied.
You see, let us
Because you
look-
are not satisfied,
No,
you are baffled.
I'll give you an example.
Please do.
He talks about incompetence and he talks about force majeure. Now, these were the same people when the gas pipeline had an accident, you remember, and the then government explained that this was force majeure. They said it was incompetence and it should have been predicted and alternatives should have been there. Today, they talk about force majeure. Now, let me tell you the wisdom in managing a country effectively and with vision. Do you recall that Tor and Bust were merged with one MD? Do you think if that merger still existed, Bust would have imported crude without knowing that Tor had problems?
But at the time that the crude was imported, Tor did not have any problems. That's the point that I'm making.
That was the wisdom in.
But who told you that there was a merger between Tor and Bust during your era?
In controlling.
Who told you? Do you know what a merger means?
There was one CEO.
But appointing one person to act as managing director over one.
Oh, sorry, he used the wrong word.
In a
That's all. But it doesn't mean that you have to kill him
over
for
one
it.
means that what there was a merger.
But you got
Please,
the import of what he
I
wanted
didn't
to
get
say.
any
No, he's doing
import.
propaganda. He doesn't want to get it. He's doing propaganda, so he doesn't want to get it. There was one CEO in charge of the two bodies.
I mean, that's
to
what you
help.
wanted to say.
And remember, those two bodies were all distressed at the time that this one CEO was appointed. They were all in distress situation. But that long thinking, that vision of putting one person to manage the two lifted those two companies up. It lifted it, and you can't deny that Bust was inherited in a better position than it was previously. Tor, the same.
I'm not in a position to confirm
You can't deny that.
How am I
You see,
going to confirm what I don't know?
The two companies in 4 years
But I
under
know
the
that there are
NDC led by President Mahama
serious
got
audits that's
better.
going on there.
You know, but you cannot deny the fact that those institutions
What are we
did
talking
better
about?
under the President Mahama regime.
please.
So
And
I'm
they are
saying
being
that,
mismanaged now.
and we are going back to ground zero, unfortunately.
Based on what?
Because if we begin to have losses like
The
we are
workers
having now,
told you that.
I mean, why is even Tor not functioning again? Tor was handed over to them functioning. Why is it not functioning?
All right. Let's move.
Why will you go and buy crude
we have to
and
wrap
sell
up.
it at a reduced cost?
We have to wrap up. I
Leading
wanted to
to
touch on
losses
this
to the
subject.
state.
Mama Vio
I think that's good
Oswald will
management.
be speaking to a deputy minister for local government. And Osebun Suamo is also a member of parliament for Ikapim South. Is about the creation of new district municipalities and metropolitan areas. We have some discussions we want to have with Obiamwa to get to know where and how is being done? What's the rationale? Is it ultimately, just like we've seen under the Fourth Republic, going to lead to creation of more constituencies, etc.? And I'm sure a lot of interested parties and individuals would have a lot more to say about it, ultimately, when it comes onto the front pages and the discussion platforms. But before we link to Mama Viuso Abuaje, let's also look at the Institute for Fiscal Studies, saying that Ghana's interest payments on debt to hit some 69 billion Ghana cedis, and by year ending, we're likely to increase our debt portfolio to about 150 billion Ghana cedis. I remember the hue and cry during the election year in 2016. That seemed like a long time ago, and was all that hue and cry about it. But Charlie, just within the spirit. But this is where we are at that situation. Let me start off with you, Mr. Japa Mesa.
With the MMDCs?
No, with the subject of the IFS raising issues, not really concerns, but that we need to put in commensurate policies and efforts to make sure that even though we're improving at the macro level, we do speedily enough so that we don't get swallowed up by the debt, which they've estimated to hit about 150 billion Ghana cedis. If we don't take care, that is where we are currently by close of year. If we borrow more, we're likely to exceed 150 Ghana cedis.
Well, I haven't read the story in detail. It's only the headline that you put out that.
That looks like a great
IFS,
communicator trying to absolve himself.
No. I mean, I always welcome.
It's a good skill. We all do it.
Yeah, I always welcome suggestions, inputs. That
you're not worried just by a cursory observation
that
we're likely to rack up the debts a lot more, even though government at the time it was in opposition had been at variance to borrowing. We even have a mantra.
I do not see how
Ghana beyond aid.
I do not see how,
which we're told we're going to have a whole campaign on it.
I do not see how racking up additional debt is going to happen if I look at the budget statement that was presented. Because the indicators as to where government was going is all contained in there. IFS is pretty respectable
think
tank, and if they're making suggestions, inputs as to how they think that government should manage the debt situation so that we do not cross a particular threshold, I believe that the finance ministry and the persons who manage the economy will take it on board. Of course, I mean, we all know very well what it is that debts can do to our economy. It is not healthy. Unfortunately, my brothers in the NDC took a decision that, well, it was better to borrow.
Are you saying that we've not? Government's decision is that we are not borrowing. We've been borrowing since 2017.
Nobody has said so.
Okay, because, so why do you blame the NDC?
If you look at the budgets that have been approved in the past 2 years, there is always some budget deficit provision that is in there.
Some threshold.
Yeah, it is how you manage it that really is reflective of either you're managing the economy properly or not. If you exceed it over and above the threshold that has been approved for you by Parliament, then clearly your debt sustainability issues arise. But if you don't even achieve it, but you spend way below the threshold that have been approved in the budget, which is a holistic picture of everything that is contained or going to happen in the economy, that clearly shows that you are managing the economy better. You are not borrowing too much above what your economy can accommodate. And so I think that government is working to achieve the budget targets, as has been said severally by His Excellency the President and the Finance Minister. I don't see any way that, you know, those thresholds
I have to catch you, sorry.
Very well.
And I always do this to my brother. You want to say a word? No?
Just, I know you are saying you always do it. You
Yes.
see, maybe just a quick one. First of all, the IMF says that our debt is going to about 150 billion.
By close of the year. Where we are now, if we borrow more, it will increase.
So, you know, they are looking at
what we intend to do.
The loans in the pipeline, and that's why they have done this projection. So to say that the NDC was borrowing, you know, as if to say that this government is not borrowing is
because
just,
we're at
it's just,
120
it's just not
or
fair
so.
to the
Or
facts.
is the
That's
recklessness
false.
with which you borrowed that?
Now
you
the
have always
recklessness is continuing, because you see, when you talk about a deficit being low, do you know why the 2017 deficit was low? You promised the Zongo people that you were going to give them money. You didn't give them. You promised the constituencies 1 million, you didn't give them. So if that was all approved for you and you didn't spend, it will look like your deficit is low. You're just deceiving yourself. But the panacea to hunger is not to hot feelings in your stomach. Go and ease yourself, and you know you are hungry.
No, of course.
If you had given them those money,
So
you wouldn't have had that deficit.
We'll see what will happen in
So if you make a
2018.
projection of what you will spend on and you don't spend and say that, oh, the deficit is low, of course the deficit will be low, because you didn't give the Zongo Fund their money. You did not give the constituencies the money you promised to give. So of course your deficit will be low. Doesn't take rocket science to understand this.
Alasan Suhain is a member of parliament for Tamale North. Thanks, Alasan.
Thank you.
He delivered the last blow.
Yeah,
Oh,
so if you
which
don't,
blow?
if
He
you
didn't deliver any blow.
Andrew
if you
Ejapa
promise
Mensah.
and break your promises,
Andrew
your deficit
Ejapa
will be
Mensah
low.
has been holding his own. He's also a legal practitioner, member of parliament for Sekendi. Good morning to you.
Body, my good
And
friend.
well, we have to go to Mama Vio Sabwaji. She's having some good conversation on the creation of
Charlie.
new districts, as well as metropolitan areas, and also municipal areas. So we'll be having all that discussion. But well, no, wait. Okay, and so we have to take a break. But before we do that, let me just have one more round of it. When Mama V is ready, then we go to when Mesa, let me come to you. When it comes to
I was making the point.
oh,
that
you
I
haven't.
didn't have time.
Okay.
I didn't have
Continue.
time.
So the point that you made, the reality is, as far as the levels of what expenditure is and normal economics will be, and all of us may have done some basic economics. Once we have the macro indicators coming down, it means that you have the space to be able to borrow, and that's the whole point of how you manage the economy vis-a-vis what you bring in, how you expend it. Then within the medium to long term, how you shore up the various sectors to rake in, either by business springing up, the interest rate also likely to come down for people to be able to borrow, invest back into industry, etc.